Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Authors Up. This is our favorite place to be on Sunday evenings, and we are very glad that you are making it your favorite place to be as well. So, we are glad that you are joining in, our listeners and our viewers, and of course, our co hosts are here tonight, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to welcome you as well and ask them how they are doing. How are you doing, Ruth? And how are you doing, Victoria? You guys good?
We're
Yes,
good. We're
yes,
good.
yes.
Yes.
Doing good. Good
Okay.
evening.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started with our week in review. We love to come back and tell you kind of what's going on in our lives, and you seem to like to share. Our ladies like to share in the evening. So we're going to start with Victoria this evening. Victoria, I like your hearts. Very, very nice.
Thank
Very
you.
nice.
Love in the room. There's love in the room.
Okay. So what's been going on with you? What's happening in the world of living life victoriously? What's
I
going on?
tell you, I said earlier, I said, I'm not going to say this last week was crummy. I'm not going to say that. It was indeed interesting.
Okay.
Just, working and, this is going to be my PSA for the night. Y'all know I'm a stickler for going to the doctor, get your health exams in, you have your health insurance. Don't put off going to the doctor. Don't get your yearly checkups, get your teeth checked up. I have to work on the teeth. I'm not too good at that. But get your teeth worked on, get everything together because prevention is a cure. And so I'll have some things to share about that. Got some not so good health news this week, but it's okay. I am peaceful. I'm good. And trusted in my doctors and the plans, and all is well. That's what I'm gonna say. All is well. But get your checkups so you won't be like me behind the curveball, especially with my teeth. I don't like the dentist. I've had some not so good issues and memories of the dentist, and so I put it off as long as possible. But I need to go, and I promised myself by my birthday I will go to the dentist.
Okay.
So that's my plug for this week. Get your checkups, please, and thank you.
And I wanted to ask you too, how are we doing with our chair challenge, our exercise thing? We were gonna hold each other
you
accountable.
know, I'm not doing as great as I could be, but I have started. I was at work one day this week, and I said, you know what? I'm sitting here at work. I take a few minutes, and I did. I had a chair exercise video, so I was sitting at my desk doing what I had to do. Shoulders up, getting it going. And I have been getting up. I try to make myself get up instead of just sitting there, because I sit there for hours. And
Yeah.
when I go to the bathroom, I'll take some extra laps around the floor just to get some extra steps in. So I'm trying to, incorporate some of that stuff in my daily life. So thank you for checking in on me. Check,
No,
check.
no problem. Check, check, right?
All right, check, check.
How are you doing, Andrea?
I'm checking.
Okay. Okay. Just
I
checking.
I'm
Just checking.
doing this thing. Somebody's going to get me set up this weekend. Well, before the weekend is over, before Monday comes, which is only in a few hours,
Yeah, I was gonna say they got
I
about
was like,
4 hours.
to make sure that my watch is set in a way that will get me up, remind me to get up.
Oh, okay. You want the
Like
notifications? Yes.
we are sitting way too long at our computers,
yeah,
so I'm going to
yeah.
get that taken care of before the night is over, so
Mhm.
that I will have good news to report next week. Yay! That will be
All
good
right, good for
for
you.
me. Now, counting down, Miss Ruth, what's going on with you?
That's less than 3 weeks.
Less than three.
Yes,
We
yes.
on baby watch. We on baby watch
Oh,
now.
baby wise at this
Anytime
point.
now.
Yes, yes, yes. And Samantha is doing fine. She stops work this coming Friday, so then
Good.
she'll just relax, which is great. I worked right up until the she was born, so I was literally in labor. I didn't know I was in labor, but
Oh wow.
she was born 12:35 a.m. of that Friday that I stopped working. So yes,
Kind of close, aren't you, Ruth?
kind of
That
close,
was
kind of
pretty
close. So
close.
I am glad that she is taking care of herself and just relax because she's got a lot to juggle and she's got to make sure that she's got everybody in place.
In
So
place,
I'm
yeah.
glad she's
So
doing
when she
that.
goes out, she don't have to worry.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good.
Yes.
good.
So
That's good.
on the other baby watch, because I did mention this last week, my niece gave birth to her first child. So
Yes.
she is in Japan. My sister is there with her. She had a little girl,
She's
cutest little
beautiful.
Her
thing.
name's
Yep,
is it Aurora? Is it Aurora?
Aurora.
Yeah,
Aurora.
I thought that
Yep.
was such a pretty name.
It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Oh
pretty.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love it. And usually I don't like it when parents, and it's no skin off of my back, but when I was started having kids and I started seeing, they're like, oh, let's name them all give them all the same initials. I was like, no, we're not doing that. But mom and dad both have the same initials, AZ. So now baby has the same initials, which I thought was pretty
Oh
cute. And I mean, you can't go wrong with a name like Aurora. So
Yeah.
no, you can't. And she's a
no,
beautiful baby.
She's a
She
pretty
is.
yeah,
little girl. She's a pretty
yes,
baby.
yes. So now I have a great niece, and my other niece, her older sister, is going to be giving birth in May. So this is just the
Wow.
year
Oh,
of the
y'all are
baby.
expanded for sure.
Yep,
Lots,
yep,
Good.
lots of births.
yep,
Lots of births. That's
But
great.
there's
yep.
no other baby like Eminem. So let's be clear.
No, there's not. She will be the beautifulest baby in the world.
The
None other.
grandest baby, the most
None other.
special
Yes,
baby that ever was baby.
absolutely. Yes, the absolute best.
You're pitiful.
Well, how was your week, Andrea?
My,
Oh,
my,
were you finished, Ruth? I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
my week was busy. I do have all of the pieces selected for volume 3, and it is so.
Awesome.
It is
Hey,
now just a matter of me doing some very conscientious editing of those pieces and making sure that I have the ones that I really want to include.
That
And
was the fun part.
this will be the last of this series. So I wanted to do 3, and this will be the 3rd volume of those, or I should say, of that collection of 8 at 8. So I'm excited about getting that done. Um,
good.
this month,
Congratulations.
I am finishing up my support. What do I want to say? I don't know what to call it, but I've been really concentrating on supporting some other people and their efforts. We had one person who had the premiere of his film. I was
Oh
able to go
yes.
to that. Christopher Neil Bailey did a great job with it,
How
and
was it? Yeah.
excuse me, it was very good.
All
Awesome.
right.
Film was very
Good.
good, and they really went all out, red carpet, whole deal, and it was really good. It was really good. And last night I was in South Carolina with another seeing a stage play that a young man was in that I had actually used in one of my performances. So it was good to see him growing and
Oh, how nice.
forward in that. So I have one more, I think, on my calendar for March, and then that's it for a while.
Right.
So, I would like to say that it was relaxing, not. Uh, Drive was a little tiring, but
Yeah.
it was still all good. It was still all good. But I was hoping that I would get back in time because I did not want to miss this evening.
Yes.
We've got a very, very special guest this evening, and I've been looking forward to listening to this young man and to hear his story about the book that he has written and subsequent books that are on the way. And it's going to be. I'm just glad for those who can join us tonight and who are with us tonight, and just tag and share. And if there's a young person that you know that writes or is in the
Right.
of a writing journey, this would be an awesome program for them to tune into. So I'm not going to talk about him anymore. I'm going to give Victoria an opportunity to share a little bit about this young man's bio and
All right.
tell us about him. Tell us about him.
All right. All right. Tyler Snure, I hope that's right, established Snore Stories and published his first novel, The Jewels of Fate, in 2019 when he was a senior high school student. The Sword of Serenth is the second book in his fiction fantasy adventure trilogy and was released in 2022. It quickly reached number 8 on Amazon's bestseller list for its category. Congratulations. He has presented at conferences, online summits, schools, libraries, boards of education, and has been featured on multiple podcasts. He frequently talks about how to write a novel while in school and starting a business as a young entrepreneur. Oh, we can't wait to meet him and talk to him tonight. After this short break, we'll be right back with Tyler and we'll be talking about his novel, The Jewels of Fate. We'll be right back.
Welcome, Tyler.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well,
Of
we're
course,
glad
well,
to have you here. Glad to have you. We've been looking
Definitely.
forward to this, so we're just excited.
Yes, we're all smiles already.
All right. All right. So, Tyler, I want to usually, and this will be my second question for tonight, to tell us about your book. But first of all, how old are you?
I'm 23,
Wow.
23. And you wrote your first book at?
17.
That's awesome. All right. Now, tell us about your book. Tell us about your trilogy.
For sure. So my name is Tyler Snure. I am the author of the Jewels of Fate series. It is a fiction fantasy trilogy about a boy. He finds out his whole life's a lie. When teenagers start disappearing all over New York, he learns that magic is real, and there's a world called Echinacea that's full of it. And then he gets summoned by the queen of this mysterious kingdom to carry out a secret request. It's very similar to series like Percy Jackson, Harry Potter. It's got a little bit of Hunger Games in there. So if you have readers listening who are into any of those series, I highly recommend they check out the Jewels of Fate series. And here, I'll show you the second book,
Ooh.
The Sword of Sorenth.
Yes.
Wow.
And the third novel to wrap up the trilogy is not released yet. It comes out this year, this summer.
Good.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. That was going to be my question. So thank you for answering.
All right, Tyler. So where did this story come from? How did it begin? Where did you get your inspiration for it?
So I've always been a huge reader. I've been reading as long as I can remember. And around the age of 7 was when I started enjoying writing. And I would write these little short stories in my class. And that's how I started to learn the craft and world building and storyline and structure and all of that. And then, over the years, these stories slowly morphed and grew into novels. And this particular story, The Jewels of Fate, began probably when I was around 12, 13 as a short story that I just wrote one day for fun with no intention of publishing it or growing it into a novel. But I liked the concept so much, and I liked the idea that I wanted to see where I could take these characters. And that's how The Jewels of Fate was born.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So your teacher must be very proud of you. They're paying attention.
My English teachers.
Yeah.
English teachers.
Oh, okay, your English teacher.
Maybe not the other subjects.
Oh, I understand.
Definitely English teachers.
So, yes. So did I would assume then your parents, the adults around you cultivated that interest in you, the reading, the writing, all of that.
Absolutely. I can honestly say I don't know how well of a writer or I would be, or if I'd have anything published without that support system.
Oh yeah.
Like my parents, huge support, so grateful for them, and teachers as well, for sure. It's funny because I mentioned my love of reading, but my grade 1 teacher, he let me borrow his library. So he had a whole stack of books in his classroom, and every so often after school, I'd come and I'd pick up a few books, and he ran his own little private library for me, and that's really how I got into certain series like the Magic Treehouse and Junie B. Jones and stuff like that.
That's awesome. I think we all have that one teacher that we remember. At least one.
Definitely.
So now that you've gotten book 3 out the way, what does your writing time look like? I'm assuming that perhaps you're juggling college or work or what all?
So I do this full time.
Oh.
I write full time and I market my books. I am still in school part time to allow me to do this. So my schedule is kind of all over the place. Most days I try and write in the morning. 9 to 11 is my sweet spot where my creativity's kind of sparked. And that's when I do anything creative. So writing, sometimes even editing, even though that's not really creative, outlining, brainstorming, all that stuff.
Nice. So where do you want to take it? I mean, you've only begun your writing journey. Where do you see yourself going?
For sure. So I want to continue writing books, number one. I don't know what I'm going to write beyond the Jewels of Fate series. So the 3rd book comes out this summer, and I have no idea what the 4th book is going to be. There will be a 4th book eventually, but I don't know what direction my writing is going to go in. I also am moving into screenwriting. So I'm also a screenwriter. I have one written screenplay that I'm shopping around with producers and sending it out and entering into contests and all of that. And I'm starting to work on a 2nd screenplay.
Awesome.
I also do a lot of school visits, so more teaching based, going into classrooms, teaching about writing and young entrepreneurship, and really encouraging kids to that if they want to be writers, they don't have to wait till they're older, that they can start, as young as they want.
Wow.
That is true. And I wish, I know we say this sometimes, I wish I had met someone like you, because I do remember being in middle school in, I guess, what would be grade 8, wondering if I was old enough to write adult conversations, if I could write books. And I put it off until I was 30, just because I didn't think I was old enough.
Wow.
So what kind of reception do you get when you go to schools and conferences and all of that?
My books, I find they're great for reluctant readers. So I'll do a school visit, and most parents buy because their kids like to read. But I've also sold to kids and parents of kids who aren't big readers, but they love that mystical, magical world building and all of that, and that's what draws them in. So that's kind of the reception I get when I go into schools. And it also depends on the classroom, because what I'm teaching is dependent on the grade that I'm talking to.
Right.
So grades 3, 4 are more about the importance of reading and why kids should read, and it kind of sparks their imagination of all the books that they can start reading, right? And I talk about all the books that I read growing up. And then when I'm talking to high schoolers, it's more about world building and how to write a novel when you're in school. So that's when all the kids come up and they're like, I'm working on a novel too. I can use this process to finish my book, even though I am in high school. So that's kind of the general reception I get when I go into schools.
Yeah. That is awesome. Awesome. So tell us about Snure Stories and what that is.
Absolutely. So Snure Stories is the company that I run. It's my writing business. It's the brand that I publish all of my books under.
Okay.
And I use to market them. So all of my social medias are all under Snure Stories. But it's it's starting to become more than that. Like, it involves all of the school visits that I do. I'm also moving into a little bit of coaching, where I work with parents on setting up a reading plan for their kids. So the Snure Stories is like the company brand that is the umbrella over all of that.
Did you ever imagine that that's what it would be when you started? Did you ever imagine that's what it would be when you started?
You got a little frozen.
Okay. That's awesome.
I am in awe.
Are you back, Tyler?
Yes, I'm back. I think I'm back. Sorry, I cut out for a second.
Awesome.
Yes,
that is okay.
It happens.
Technology. It's great until it's not. So, all right, Andrea, what you got?
Well, I'm listening to Tyler, and I'm thinking to myself, we had an author on several weeks ago who wrote about aviation, and she was saying, you know, that she knew, like when she was 5 years old, she said, I'm going to do that one day. You know, I'm going to fly a plane. And it seems that you have a similar kind of story. I mean, a lot of times we don't know what we want to do until we're 30. And sometimes we don't find out then, you know, and it's later in life. But you knew at 7, you had this interest in writing, and you wanted to do this trilogy. Now, did you actually start out thinking, oh, I'm going to do a trilogy, I'm going to have these 3 books, and this is a story that it's going to be? Or were you just in a mode of saying, you know what, I want to write something and let this short story evolve? Which way was it for you?
For sure. When I first started writing this, you know, back when The Jewels of Fate was a short story, I had no intention of getting it published or even, you know, turning it into a novel. It was just something I wrote for fun. But then I started showing it to some friends and, you know, my parents and even some teachers. And they're like, this is really good. You know, you should expand on this, build this. Maybe this could be a novel. And that's what I did. So slowly, you know, I reworked it. And that short story slowly expanded into a novel. And I think it was around 16 or 17 was when I made the decision to publish it. And then it was kind of a faster process after that to the finish line. But I wrote it as a standalone novel. So you can read The Jewels of Fate and have no expectation of a second book.
Okay.
And then after I published it, I realized I liked those characters so much, and I wanted to keep writing their stories, that I wrote the second book. And that's when I decided to turn it into a trilogy. Wow. So if you read the second novel, it kind of ends on a cliffhanger where you know there's going to be a third book, but it's not the case for the first. Like, you can read The Jewels of Fate as a standalone.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. We Ruth was asking about, or Victoria was asking about your support system and getting the support that you did from your family and teachers and all. What about your peers? How did that work for you? Did you find that there were friends that you had who were interested in writing as well, that you kind of tapped into? And the second part of that is the characters that you developed. Were they based on friends, people you knew, or, you know, how close is that?
So I'll answer your first question. I have a few friends who are interested in writing. I found I didn't connect with a lot of, you know, other writers around my age until I got to university. Okay. But even my friends who weren't writers were super supportive. Like, so many of them came out to my book launch. So many of them have bought and read the book, and they've left reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, which for an author, that's huge. So for me, I found I didn't have to have friends who were writers to have that support system. Even my non-writer friends were super supportive and enjoyed my books. Now, to answer your second question, my readers tell me that, well, especially readers that know me, they see characters in the book that are similar to family and friends. And then they confront me about it. They're like, is this character like Uncle so-and-so? Like, why does this character sound like Aunt so-and-so? And I'm like, it's not intentional. I say it's accidental. It's accidental if you find yourself in one of my books.
Yeah.
But then I give them a warning. That means anything they do might end up in a novel one day. So be careful what you say and do.
Yeah.
Well, we had asked you before we started the interview with you, Tyler, if there was a particular part in one of the books that you would like to read to us tonight and kind of share with us. And you said absolutely. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes and set it up. Tell us what you're getting ready to read to us, and then have at it.
For sure. So I will read the first page of the Jewels of Fate. And this is, so my books are first person perspective, and they flip flop between the two characters. So Chuck is the main character, and then Kayleen is the other main character that you hear from. So the first chapter starts with Chuck. And to kind of give a little bit of context, he's from New York, living his normal life. And then, like I said in the synopsis, something's coming that's about to shake up his world. And he's about to find out that there's this whole other world that exists. I nearly witnessed the end of the world. All New Yorkers had been going about their regular routines with no idea what had really happened. But I knew the truth and how it all began. I live in New York. My family owns a luxurious penthouse and has lots of money. We can literally buy whatever we want. But life is not as glamorous as it might seem. First, I have to deal with people treating me as if I'm an arrogant rich snob everywhere I go. Second, my father, the big money maker, is hardly ever around. I think he sleeps at his office most days. It used to bother me that he was always gone, but it barely phases me now. Third, and what annoys me most, is when my father finally gets home, he usually nags me about my grades and working harder at school. He plans for me to go to Harvard and eventually take over his billion-dollar company, Kingsley Enterprises. This is why Dad enrolled me in a private school called Richmond Heights and has such high expectations all the time. That was my life until 2 years ago when Gail came to live with us. I didn't know why, but one day my parents announced we would be hiring a live-in maid. Surprisingly, she looked well into her senior years. Although her graying brown hair was an indication of her age, Gail was fast as lightning in the kitchen. She was a little overprotective most of the time, except when she cooked me whatever I asked for. Gail was the only person who had the guts to negotiate with or stand up to both my parents. Honestly, sometimes I felt like she was the only one who actually cared about me. There was always a massive pile of chocolate chip pancakes waiting for me on the table each morning, and today was no different.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Ooh, I was ready to hear more, and I've read it.
It draws you in.
Yes.
I think that I just to know that you could create as much as you have created within these two books, I think is phenomenal. And I congratulate you on not only what you've done in terms of getting the book published and getting the book out, but to be an inspiration to so many young people who, as Victoria said earlier, who didn't have that, who didn't have that person they could turn to or look at and say, well, this is possible for me to do. Right. And I think that is phenomenal. Your business platform and all of that. Where's most of that help coming from?
For sure. So the business side of my writing started in the summer of grade 11, and it was through a program called the Summer Company. So up until that point, I had learned a little bit about writing, and I was finished with my book and just editing it, but I had no idea about business, whether I should create a business out of this. How do you market a novel? How do you let people know about your books? All of that stuff. And going full circle back to teachers, it was my business teacher who encouraged me to enter this program called the Summer Company. And what they do is they give grants to high school students to start their own business. And I did not think writing could be a business. I thought those two were completely separate, and that program entirely changed my world. And I still use what they taught me today. And that summer was when I got my first book published, and so there was a lot of marketing help from that program there.
Awesome. That is awesome. Victoria, let me turn it over to you. Sometimes we run out of time because
That's okay. I'm just sitting here listening in awe.
So go ahead, Victoria. I know you had some questions for Tyler.
It's more comments than questions. I am just in awe. I'm sitting here listening to you. My face hurts. Very rarely do we come across someone so young who's doing so much. And I am thoroughly impressed by everything that you're saying. And I hope we will have some viewers who will share this with the young people in their lives to tell them that they can do it. Because here we have Tyler. You've done it. You're doing it. And it's just amazing. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, though, how did you come up with all those characters? I had teased you before we started. All these characters run around in your head, because there's a lot of characters in the book. And just for me, when I started reading it, I said, this is Divergent meets Harry Potter. I absolutely, and I told the ladies, I said, I like this book. It has kept me interested. But anyway, about the characters, how did you come up with all these characters?
For sure. Just from my head. Like I mentioned before, I
don't know.
Intentionally base characters off of anyone that I know. Right. Although sometimes I think I have too many characters in my book. Okay. But my goal for the characters was I wanted them to be different. So I wanted a cast of characters that were polar opposite as I can make them be. So in terms of their looks and their personalities and their interests and their powers and their goals and their motivations, the 5 characters on the front of this book are all completely different, and yet somehow they work together to save the world.
Right. Go back to that. Tell us who is what character.
For sure. So these are the 5. There's a lot more in the Jewels of Fate, but these are the 5 main characters. So I mentioned Chuck and Kayleen. The book flips between their perspective because they're like the main characters.
Right.
And then you have Kimmy, Daqua, and Ryan.
Yes.
And what's cool about each of these characters is they represent one of the 5 fields of magic. So in the book, every wizard falls under one of 5 categories. You can either be a combat magic, a combat, power of knowledge, charms, or an elements. Yes. And there's a whole bunch of different powers and abilities associated with each of those fields of magic. So Chuck is combat magic. Kayleen is elements. This is like controlling nature.
Yes.
Power of knowledge is the intelligent, using your brain, all of that. Daqua is charms, so mystic and illusion. And Kimmy is combat, so hand-to-hand fighting, weapons, all that kind of stuff.
I like elements. I like it. I like elements a lot.
Yeah.
You can see this brought out my inner child.
Well, what's cool is, that's a perfect segue, is because you can go on my website, snurestories.com, and take the personality quiz for yourself and find out what field of magic you are.
Cool.
Cool. Here we go. There
it is.
Yes.
And that was going to be one of my questions. Like, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, I know your books are available probably all where books are sold, but how could they get in touch with you and want to reach out and connect with you?
For sure. So all my socials are Snure Stories. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and my email is info@snurestories.com. And once again, my website is snurestories.com. So those are all the ways that you can get in touch with me and find out more about my books. I'm also on Amazon. If you search The Jewels of Fate or Tyler Snure on Amazon, my books will pop up as well.
So they have been well received.
Yes.
How have they been doing on Amazon? I know you said the second one was on number 8 on the bestseller. How about The Jewels of Fate?
The Jewels of Fate sells well as well. It actually sells, I would say, better than the first. which is pretty common in series. Usually the first book sells better than the rest of the
Mhm.
series.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. I love it. But I'm going to ask a personal question. Not having to do with it. Who is your favorite author and why?
Who is my favorite author?
Yeah.
I have to say um, J.K. Rowling.
Really?
I love the Harry Potter series. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're so well written. And I think the story of how they were published
Yeah.
is really cool too. Um,
Yes.
and it was also the first big series that I read when I was a kid.
Really? Yeah.
Um, so when I think of Harry Potter and kind of when I talk about it, it's connected to my childhood, right? So yeah, I got to say Harry Potter.
That is wonderful. I think my last question is, how do you come up with your universe, your world building, your magical world building? How is that a structure you use to do that, or does it come along as you're writing?
So for the world building, I had to plan that out. It wasn't something that just came up spontaneously.
Okay.
I found in order to be consistent, in order for it to make sense, it needed to be put together before I started writing. So,
Mm,
for example, a huge part of the world building is how Echinacea is made up of 10 different cities or smaller kingdoms. And each of those, kind of like the fields of magic, they have different um, geographies and different types of people who live there. And
yes.
so in order to plan that out, because it is a huge part of the story and referenced constantly throughout the books, I had to make sure I knew what one city was like versus another city, and traveling, how do you get from one to the other, and how long does
Right.
it take, and all of that.
Loved it. I loved it. So I'm going to say it. Y'all get the book. Get the book. And I'm definitely going to go on Amazon and give you a review because I absolutely loved it. So y'all
I
get the
appreciate
book.
that. I
You
appreciate
will
that so
not
much.
if you like the fictional fantasy adventure. I loved it. And it also had for me. I always like the who done it. Who done it.
Mhm.
And I like to find out. I love that you have a little mystery in there because you're not too sure who's doing what and why, but you'll find out. Keep reading. So get the
Mhm.
book.
Tyler, if there was something in particular that you wanted to say to a young writer out there who might be kind of sitting on a fence, wondering if this is something that they can do, or whether all writers, I don't care how young or how old, we are all in that same bucket sometimes of, is anybody going to read this? Is
Right.
anybody going to enjoy this as much as I enjoyed writing it? And those kinds of things. what
Mhm.
what kind of advice would you give a young writer, any writer, but particularly a young writer?
For sure. I would say you're never too young to write a book. And in terms of the criticism, your book will not be for everyone, but it will be for
Mhm.
someone. So if
Yeah.
you keep that in
Mhm.
mind, no book is 100% 5 stars, and no book is 100% 1 star either.
Right.
So it's always a mix in between, and if you keep that in mind, it will help you find your right audience, because there is a right audience for your book.
Mhm.
And continue learning the craft, continue listening to podcasts like this, reading podcasts, writing podcasts, connect with other writers. Um, and writing is a daily practice where you only get better the more you do it. So
Mhm.
that's also another encouragement. Just press into that as well.
Seems like I've heard that from somebody.
Yep.
Yo.
Someone up at the top of the screen. This is great.
That's all the advice we've given over the years, Tyler, and just to hear it come out in one breath from someone so young, that is wonderful. That
It
is
really
excellent
is.
advice. It is.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tyler, it has been a pleasure. It has been an absolute pleasure being able to meet you this evening and to hear you read from your book and talk about your book,
Yeah.
and to be able to uh, say wholeheartedly, as Victoria said, get the book. We do encourage that, our audience, our readers to get the book. And young people, I've got two goddaughters, and they're 11 years old. And, I try to encourage them, not necessarily to write, but to be interested in reading and to be interested in the backstory of the author and how the author got started, and what they did in order to produce their book. So yours will be on that list for sure. And to be able to say to them that we had the opportunity to meet you, and
Yes.
not only meet you, but just hear some very good advice from you.
Yeah.
And so appreciate you taking the time to share with us here on Authors Up tonight. We absolutely wish you the best
Yes.
in
Yes.
your next undertaking and your new endeavors. We look forward to it. We look forward to seeing what is going to evolve next time around, and I'm sure it's going to be exciting. Somewhere you're going to go up to a point, but it's after that point that we're all looking forward to see what's in line for you. So thank you so much for being a part of Authors Up. We truly enjoyed it tonight.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Not Victoria, but Ruth.
No, Victoria can do it if she'd like.
Oh, Victoria, do you
I do not like.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was an option. Oh, that's all right. I'll do it. That's fine. All right. So we are on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just search for Authors Up or Authors Up Show, and you will find us. So please like, share, subscribe, all of that. So you can catch a replay of this show on Facebook Saturday night at 7 p.m. Or if you're not catching us on Facebook, you can also go to YouTube or podcast midweek, and you can take us with you wherever you go. So, or you can email us. I saw the accidental banner come up earlier. authorsup@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, or if you just want to tell us how great of a job we're doing.
Yes.
So please reach out. We want to hear from you.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so glad that Ruth mentioned Saturday evenings at 7. Get you some popcorn, get your nieces, get your nephews, get whomever it is that that is wanting to write, and get them together and listen to this program again on Saturdays at 7 p.m. because it is it's not all the time that we get the opportunity to meet a Tyler and be able to glean from him. And as someone who has been through the process and come out number 8 on the bestseller list. So
I know.
Yeah, we got to support him because he is definitely an amazing writer and an even more amazing young man. So thank you so much for being here. And that is it for us for tonight. Thank you all of our listeners and all of our viewers. We always appreciate you. We are glad that you were able to stop by this evening. Come by Authors Up. We always say you never, ever know what's going to happen when you tune in to Authors Up. So don't miss it. Don't miss the program. We will be right here on Sunday evening coming up at 7 p.m. for another edition. And we hope that you will come and share that time with us. So until then, have an absolutely amazing week. And Tyler, thank you again for being with us. And that is it for us for tonight. Don't
Good
forget,
night, everybody.
7 p.m. right here for Authors Up.
Night, Bronze Girls.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week.